Hey, everybody, just a quick trade day recap. Today is August 7th, 2025. Today was a good day. I was up on MES about 109 points. That was cumulative, of course, when you break it down by the number of contracts traded, but it was a good day. First, the pre market plan. So, in the high time frame, I had found some consolidation up here at the highs for our supply. We obviously had a huge dump down into the lows over the next couple of days. So that was a great place, I thought, to record a supply zone. Now that was at the top of the profile, so I wasn't crazy about it, but it did appear to be the primary supply coming from the high end all the way down through this dump. But I also highlighted this zone as a secondary supply. The reason why I highlighted this zone is because during business hours, we obviously had a drop into the 200 here. We really pumped up on volume, and then we finally had another big drop, and that's where things really kind of took off to the downside. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted this zone as well. The other reason is if you look at the volume profile, we obviously printed a lot of volume on this particular node, and we hadn't had a lot of volume since. So it felt to me like that could very well be a good secondary location for supply zone. To the downside, we had some consolidation overnight. So I saw that as being maybe a secondary demand, with our primary demand being over several nights. We had some consolidation back here, of course, all night this day. And then again, yesterday during business hours, we had some really solid consolidation there as well. And then we pumped up into this secondary supply zone that we're showing here. So let's open up the lower time frame and kind of look at it there in the pre-market plan. This is the way it looked coming into getting to my desk this morning. So we were consolidating in this zone, like I pointed out before. We popped up out of it, consolidated a little bit more, and then we pumped into secondary supply. And once we rejected that, we started to come into the market below secondary supply, which was kind of nice because it gave us probably some more immediate price action to take a look at. Okay, so trade number one was based off of a zone that I drew from the pre-market. We had a little pullback here where we had a pivot, and we pulled back, took some profits, and then we pushed up. So I highlighted this one as a pivot point, and I wanted to see what would happen as price came back into this area to see if, hey, would the buyer over here step in and try to push this thing back up. So I did go ahead and see that. If you look over here on the right on the heat map, we saw the 930 bell. We dropped down on this delta right here on this highlighted candle. You can see all the sellers pouring in. But they were unable to push the market further down. You could see how much aggression there was as we dropped into this little channel here. And eventually then the sellers started to weaken. They gave it another shot right down here to push it down, but couldn't get any follow through. Eventually we got a little pop here from the bulls and one more try to move this thing down. It was like the last failed attempt from the sellers. And then we just got a real nice injection of volume from the buyers here. And on the candlesticks, you can see that injection of buying on this green highlighted candle. So I saw that delta starting to pour in, and I thought, okay, we have a higher low at a pivot point, and we have delta. I went ahead and took a long here, knowing that we were longing into secondary supply. But after a strong uptrend from yesterday, I was looking for that higher low for a potential structural breakout. So I took this opportunity to take a long, even though we were going into secondary supply. I figured we'd either get a sharp rejection at secondary supply or we'd get a nice push up into the overnight high where I could take profits there or potentially even beyond. Of course, we did get that rejection. It was a very hard rejection. As the market started to pour delta in here, I saw this candle highlighting with all that negative delta, and I decided to go ahead and get out at break even. Trade number two came on the close of that candle where I stopped out my first trade at break even. As soon as that candle closed, I kind of reversed my bias with the thesis that, hey, we went up and tested secondary supply and we got a hard rejection. Earlier in the pre-market, we also had a really strong delta candle moving out of that secondary supply. So when we went up there and tested it again, I got another strong delta candle coming out of secondary supply, and I went ahead and decided to take a short here to get a continuation to the downside. I figured we saw a flip of the bias. The morning news showed that the jobs data was a miss. We came in with higher continuing jobless claims. And I figured at some point that was going to affect the market. It hadn't affected the market when it came out, but I figured when the market, the NYSE section actually launched, we would see some, sort of bearish bias enter into the market. So when I saw that strong rejection, I went ahead and took that short. Unfortunately, the morning chop, the buyers came back in a little bit and stopped me out, ticked me out at the very top of this trade, and I went ahead and lost 1 hour there. It happens. It was a good trade. I liked the setup, but it was just too early and we got chopped out. Trade number 3 was yet another crack at a rejection off the secondary supply. After I got stopped out, I got ticked out. I think that was the absolute top tick of that wick. After I got stopped out, the sellers really poured in very strongly again out of that zone, and a second rejection on really high delta just seemed like, the first one didn't work out, but it doesn't mean that the next one won't. I got in a little bit late. My reaction to it was a little bit late. I lost a few ticks there, maybe even a couple points. But I did get into the trade, and I had I think 5 or 10 contracts on this one. I have to go back and look. But we took a nice short here, and I was able to make up the loss and go up 1 R. So it was a really, really solid trade. I did take it off probably maybe a hair earlier than I would have liked to. I would have liked this test a little bit more, but I just when I saw the price starting to pull back here a little bit, I think maybe it was emotional reaction. I knew I could go up an R and make back this loss here that I had earlier in the day, and I sort of took this off. But technically, I think I was a little bit early. It did go my way because price started moving up, but generally speaking, I didn't have another solid exit criteria to get out, other than the fact that we had gone down and hit about I don't know, 7 or 8 points there, and that was a decent profit, and it brought me up 1 R. So that was the second trade of the day. It was, or actually the third trade of the day. It was a good one. At this point, I have 1 win, 1 loss, and a break even, and I'm looking for one more solid win to finish out the day. Last but not least, we had yet a third attempt to break down secondary supply. The zone actually moves down a little bit here because after we had our first test, we had that consolidation along the bottom of the secondary supply. That too kind of sort of becomes its own supply, right? So it sort of moves that level down, and we're looking now to return to it to get us a rejection here on Delta once again. So as we entered the zone, we got pretty much to the secondary supply, but we were still within the consolidation from the previous swing. But we got the seller stepped right back in again. We got this beautiful, quad criteria delta candle to the downside. That was 2 of those, and they were both big winners for me. I went ahead and took this short here on pretty decent size. And this one was one I listed in the Discord as, hey, if this one closes a winner, I'm done for the day because that'll hit goal for me. And we went ahead and watched it march down, hit goal, and I was done for the day.